G'day fishos, welcome back. Port Stephens Fishing Report. Firstly, appreciate the support. Get a lot of calls, a lot of people call in, a lot of people that are on holidays that watch our fishing report. So it's worth me doing. So really appreciate the support on the fishing report. So there you go. Now, let's get into it straight away. This weekend, quick weather report. I think, Friday's looking good. But Saturday's not too bad, but then we get a southerly change into Sunday. So maybe a storm on Saturday into Sunday as well on the forecast, but we'll see what rolls. But make the most of Saturday, I reckon, anyway. So give it a crack this weekend. It'll still be pretty good, I think, even though that's southerly on Sunday. We are on the full moon, which means we've got bigger tides at the moment. So working with the tides is probably going to be key, I think. Try and look at that smaller high tide rather than the bigger high tide, and fish that last couple of hours, or even the first of the run-in or last of the run-out, just to get that sort of smaller flow, I guess, at the moment, especially inside the bay. Now, I'll tell you what, there are some cracking flatties inside the bay at the moment. The amount of people catching big flatties is great to see. Maybe it's a combination of that floods that we had way back in the wintertime that sort of generated that. There's plenty of bait in the bay. As I said last week when I went for a run, there's lots of jelly prawns inside the bay, so that means there's lots of smaller fish feeding on those little chopper tailor, whiting and bream. Maybe that's what's getting the flatties stirred up at the moment. But some big flatties in the bay. Now, I managed a quick arvo session after work, throwing my good old Slim. I'm going to plug these things because they actually work. The Duo Slim Swim 140s and 175s. I had a cracking little session. I only had about an hour and 20 minutes. I got an 81 and a 91 centimetre lizard, or lizards I should say. So did really well on the flatties. Good to get those bigger fish. Got a couple of smaller fish too, a couple of eaters around that sort of 50 centimetre mark. So even though they're a big lure, the little fish have a crack as well. So good fun on the flatties at the moment. Plenty of reports of good flatties. Had a quick chat to Paul from Fishport Stephens Estuary Charters, putting his clients onto some really nice flatties as well. So which is great to see. He said, look, the brim fishing has still been firing up, which is amazing because, like I've said in past reports, normally by this time the fish have sort of migrated and spread right out through, especially the upper half of the bay. But he said there's still been some good congregations of brim for his customers on lures, which is good to see. So worth a shot there. Now, if you're land-based, there's plenty of good flatty spots at the moment that are producing really well. Wanda Headland's fishing really well. It's a good little area, especially in those corners of Wanda Headland, holds a few flatties. The back of Soldiers Point up towards Cromarty, Mary's Beach, all through there starting to hold a few flatties. So too Taylor's Beach, if you want to walk the flats, especially when the wind goes around to the northeast there. So those flats up through there holding some really nice flatties. I think the key to it, especially this weekend, is that trickle of incoming tide. If you can get there early and get the first push of the tide when those fish move up onto the flats, that'll be the key, I reckon, at the moment. And then further down the bay, around Corlett, back through Baggies, down into Nelson Bay, even Nelson Bay Beach, and then all the way down to the eastern end of Shoal Bay. So I know Pete caught a couple of fish through there, went for a wander. I saw on his Facebook post a couple of nice flatties and a few brim. So throwing soft plastics there, so well done, Pete. So definitely worth a land-based fish at the moment. But if you're in the bay, you can get elsewhere. Tilligary Creek, up the Karua system, fishing really well at the moment. Spoken with good mate Harrow. He's been getting some nice flatties up his neck of the woods, and a few mulloway as well on the Vibes. So can fish pretty well there up at the Karua at the moment. The other thing is plenty of blue swimmers around. So we're selling plenty of crab traps, which tells me that there's plenty of blue swimmers around. So it'd be worth getting the traps in. Just be mindful of the bigger tides. You might have to put them in a little bit shallower just to avoid the current this weekend. But worth a shot on the blue swimmers at the moment, that is for sure. Surface lure fishing. So remember I said last week about whiting on surface lure as well. The water's starting to warm up, even though I've had a couple of little sort of cold snaps and westerlies and things like that. It'll definitely be worth, if you want to hunt those flats this weekend. Those whiting will push right up into the shallows, in around the mangroves and things like that this weekend. So be worth a shot throwing a few surface lures around for whiting this weekend. We've got some new stuff in as well. Samaki have just brought out a great little surface lure looking like a prawn. I think that'll be a ripper for the surface this year on the whiting, and also the brim as well on the surface, so give that a shot at the moment. So that's the bay in a nutshell. Land-based, the breakwells, both the Anchorage and Nelson Bay, a few kings down there, a few rats though, not big fish, but good fun if you want to go and throw a stick bait around, although obviously live baits will work a little bit better, but just some rats down there at the moment to have a bit of fun with for sure. So that's the bay in a nutshell at the moment. The beaches and the rocks, well, funnily enough, the rocks fired up during the week. I spoke to Pete. He fished the rocks and did really well. Got some good black drummer, some big silver drummer. He said he had a mixed bag of big tarwine as well. So even though we're on the full moon at the moment, those bigger tides, there was a little bit of a pulse in the swell during the week. So it might stir things up at the moment. So it might be worth having a fish off the rocks. Now, with that full moon, you could also try that. There's a later tide. It's about 9, 10 o'clock. You could also try, if you wanted to, in safe conditions, to fish after dark in the washes. It works really well on brim and drummer. I've done it before on the full moon. So if you're keen on doing that, just got to be in a safe spot. There's plenty of light with that big moon, so it'd be worth having a shot after dark off the rocks at the moment, especially for brim and drummer. So a little hot tip there, it works really well. So other species off the rocks at the moment, have a spin for a few bonitos, actually a couple of bonito around. Not many, but worth a spin off the headlands, and obviously salmon and tailor are still about at the moment. Now, the beaches. Beaches are fishing really well, and I remember when I was a young fella, I feel old now, back in my 20s, I used to do a lot of beach fishing this time of year, leading up to Christmas. I used to chase the mulloway off the beach. I reckon I went 2 or 3 times a week and fished the tides after dark. And it still hasn't changed, because there was some really, really good mulloway caught this week on various beaches, believe it or not. I spoke to Shane, Jamie and Regs, and they fished the beach and got some really nice mulloway off the beach. I think 24 kilo was the biggest one night. So it is that time of year where I like chasing mulloway, although I haven't done it for a while. But if you get the tides right, which we are now, those after dark tides, and find a nice gutter, I reckon you'll be in for a chance of a mulloway at the moment. And like I said, any of the beaches, like there's a good gutter at Fingal. There's plenty of good gutters around Middle Rock through there. And then obviously Barubie, well, take your pick. You've got 30 kilometres of gutters to fish at the moment. So worth a shot on a mulloway. Other species, a few whiting starting to kick in. There are a few about. I know up towards the Spit there's been a few whiting up that way. Some brim, plenty of salmon on the beach there as well. And down Barubie, of course, there are plenty of salmon down there at the moment. So we've just got to wait for that water to warm up. It's about 19 degrees, still cold for me to get in for a swim. But worth a shot at the moment on the beaches. So give that a crack this weekend. Now, the offshore scene with that full moon, always bang on. I don't like a full moon for snapper, but if you fish that moonrise, moon set, I think you'll do okay. And I think fishing deeper water in that 40 to 50 metre country will do a lot better, that is for sure. You'll have a little bit of window of opportunity on the snapper, and it'll be worth a shot. I think it'll be worth fishing for trag. Reports of trag coming in this week, especially from the Big Giver down to the Outer 21, the M Mark, all through there, Air Force Reef, and then back down towards Uralla and a Tank Mark out wider there. So be worth a shot for a few trag, I think, this weekend on that full moon if you're keen on doing that. Might be a few offshore mulloway as well. It's starting to get to that time of year where we find them in that 80 to 100 metre sort of marks. So it might be worth fishing for a few mulloway out wider. Might be a little bit early, but it'd be worth a shot if you get some livey, some small yakkers, and go and have a crack at that. Kings this week, well, there has been some good kings around at the moment. Up around Broughton, especially in the shallow, some really good kings around. And then back down towards Boulder Bay and Rocky there. There's been some good kings through the washes there. I know some guys that were stick baiting the washes and said they had some absolute brutes come up but didn't eat their lures. So if you're keen on a live bait or a stick bait for a king at the moment, I think it'll definitely be worth a go at that at this point in time. Yes, the fads are out being asked if there's any dolphin fish there. Look, at the moment being early season, it's just you're going to go and give it a crack. But looking at the rip charts, spoke to my good mate Scotty, he alerted me to this one actually. When I looked at rib charts yesterday, well, basically it looks really, really good if you want to go and have a bit of a marlin fish out on the shelf. Above the car park, 32.50, 55 there, there's actually current pushing into the west, and there's actually a zero line. So if it was February, I'd be saying it'd be going gangbusters, but if you're keen to get out there on Saturday with the weather, I think it'd be worth fishing for striped marlin. I know there was a couple caught last weekend, but the way the altimetry and the current's lining up, it's very similar. I spoke last week about some longliners working at Port Macquarie. It looks very similar to that, altimetry line at 0 and 0.5 of current pushing to the west there. It's a combination of that current pushing to the edge, bait stacking up on the shelf, and if there's marlin there, I think it'd be worth a go. Water looks about 23 degrees, so be worth having an investigation, I reckon, out on the shelf on Saturday if you're keen on doing that. Anyway, that's the report this week. A good report, actually, because there's plenty of good fish around. Enjoy your weekend. Get out there, get amongst it. I think it'll be a good weekend of fishing.